الحمد لله هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله لقد جاء الرسل ربنا بالحق. All praise is due to Allah who guided us to this, and we would not have found the way if Allah had not guided us. Certainly the messengers of our Lord brought the truth. Salamun alaikum. This is our 13th annual Tawheed Conference, and I'm excited and honored to be here in Maryland to spend time with my brothers and sisters in Islam who also took the time out to be with us today. You see, at past conferences, we've explored and discussed a wide range of topics. Today, however, I want to share with you my experience in coming to the realization of understanding the difference between Deen al-Islam in the Quran alone versus the traditional concepts and practices of the parallel man-made religion of Islam Muslim scholars teach the Muslim Ummah. As a result of this research, my renewed understanding of Deen al-Islam does not include any of my personal opinions, views, or ideas, or those of any other individual. My understanding is based on knowledge of the dictates and principles found only in the Quran, in contrast to the more commonplace practice among Sunni Muslims who rely on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Now, with that said, previously I made a video entitled Unlock Your Mind, and the link for that video has been uploaded to my YouTube channel, Quran Alone, The Straight Path. Today's lecture, however, is entitled Wake Up to That Which Gives You Life. Now, why did I give it that title? Well, because we read in 824, God says to humanity, O you who trust, respond to God and his messenger when he calls you to that which gives you life. And know that God comes between a man and his heart, and that to him you will be gathered. Now, what this verse is, this verse is an invitation from God and is directed to every individual on the planet Earth, regardless of color, gender, age, creed, or nationality. You see, God is inviting us to his guidance and is asking us to respond and answer to his call to embrace the concept of monotheism. Now, all the prophets of God throughout history have invited mankind to the straight path of God. And we, as Muslim da'is, should also be doing the same thing as the prophets of God did. That is, inviting people to Deen al-Islam. Moreover, from the information gathered from my research, I found that Muslims have deviated from Deen al-Islam, and the Messenger of God came as the final carrier of God's messages to mankind and restore true monotheism to humanity. Therefore, this call is urging Muslims to rise above the corrupt state of the man-made parallel religion of Islam. It is a call to return to Deen al-Islam and reclaim their allegiance to our Creator alone. However, what this verse is not a call to prayer, as some Muslim scholars have erroneously interpreted and taught it to mean. Rather, they have misunderstood this verse and twisted its meaning to suit their own man-made ideologies. Now, they violate basic teachings in the book and disfigure the messages of God, which in turn closes the minds of many Muslims in particular and mankind in general that may have been opened and receptive to the call to God's guidance. You see, Deen al-Islam is based on Tawheed, the absolute oneness of God. It encourages us to recognize and affirm that God alone is the creator, sustainer, and provider of all that exists, and that no person, place, thing, or anyone shares in his authority to set legislation and provide guidance. So, it's essential for humanity to wake up to his call and return to the concept of monotheism. This fundamental aspect of Deen al-Islam must be embraced by all if we are to be free from the divisions and strife that have plagued our society for so long. You see, recently we've been introduced to a new term in Western society called wokeness. You see, the definition of being woke adopted by some in the West, varies depending on what group of individuals are being asked. However, for me, being woke has a different and more significant meaning specifically for Muslims and for humanity in general, and not just associated with a select group of individuals. You see, with my newfound attentiveness and my so called waking up to my misunderstanding of the messages contained in the Quran, the definition of woke for me as a Muslim is one, to critically examine the validity of what I understood to be the truth taught to me by Muslim scholars regarding the messages of God sent down and revealed to the messenger. And two, to introduce a more common sense approach to understanding the messages contained in the Quran alone. And three, to provide conclusive arguments based only on the Quran alone as the only source of guidance for humanity. You see, there's a growing trend among some Muslims which is causing concern among traditional Muslim scholars. This trend involves Muslims like myself who hold a strong dedication and allegiance to God alone, striving hard to comprehend his true messages as revealed to the messenger through the Quran alone. According to traditional Muslim scholars, the individuals who follow this trend have been labeled Quraniyun, Quranists, Quran alone Muslims, or hadith rejectors. I'm not sure who or how they came up with these labels, but in 2278, God says, and strive hard for God with due striving. He has chosen you and has not laid upon you any hardship in deen, the creed of your father Abraham. He has named you Muslims before and in this, and that the messenger may be a bearer of witness to you, and you may be a bearer of witness to the people. And in 16123 we read, then we revealed to you, O Muhammad, that you follow the creed of Abraham, the upright one, and he was not of the polytheists. Therefore, individuals who follow this trend, this creed of Abraham, God calls them Muslims, not Quraniyun or Quranites or Quranists. Moreover, those in power who have created this narrative seeks to portray those who follow the creed of Abraham as a marginal fringe type conspiratorial group of individuals who are misguided. This narrative also rejects the fact that the revelation of the Quran alone is the sole source of guidance and instruction. Now, Dr. Omar Ramahi, a respected participant in our Tawheed conference today, authored a book entitled Muslims' Greatest Challenge, Choosing Between Tradition and Islam. And in his book, he says, Islam's goal, if not its ultimate one, is to reach truths. This means that anyone can speak about Islam as long as that person follows a process of rational reasoning that validates the arguments presented. Since Islam's goal is to reach truths, according to Dr. Ramahi, I want to point out that there are three types of truths: personal truths, political truths, and objective truths. Suffice it to say, objective truths are true whether you believe them or not, and the Quran is based solely on objective truths. You see, we're a grassroots community of Muslims with an aim to motivate, educate, and empower other Muslims and non-Muslims by presenting impactful and engaging Islamic arguments regarding objective truths revealed by God in the Quran alone. Now, the participants here today at our conference bring to the table different levels of understanding and expertise, and this diversity adds to the richness of our discussions. Some bring a deeper understanding of the etymology and grammatical structures of a verse, while others, like myself, bring a more practical, down-to-earth, kitchen table type perspective on issues impacting the Muslim community. As a group, however, our aim is to enhance our collective knowledge and obligations to God through these exchanges. Now, to that end, My goal as part of this grassroots community of Muslims is twofold. My foremost goal is to introduce to Muslims and non Muslims our community of forward thinking, analytical, and open minded individuals who concentrate on shedding light on the misunderstandings of the messages contained in the Quran alone. Now, this goal is in stark contrast to the traditional Muslim scholars and teachers' goal, who base their understanding on the Quran side by side with their hadith literature, and in some cases supersedes the Quran. The purpose of our think tank is to expose these objective truths, and as Muslims, our focus is to understand the messages within the Quran. Based on the principles outlined in the book alone, we are commanded to follow its instructions on doing good and avoiding evil. In 3:187, we read, and when God took a covenant from those who were given the book, you shall expose, latubayinatu, you shall expose it to men and shall not hide it. But they cast it behind their backs and took a small price for it. So evil is that which they buy. And 47:24 says, do they not reflect on the Quran? Or are there locks on their minds? And in 38:29, God says, a book that we have revealed to thee abounding in good, that they may ponder over its verses, and that men of understanding may mind. And in 9:122, we read, and the believers should not go forth altogether. Why then does not a company from every party from among them go forth, that they may apply themselves to obtain understanding in deen, and that they may warn their people when they come back to them, that they may be cautious? You see, these Quranic verses contain powerful messages that require thoughtful reflection and contemplation. These verses communicate a divine message that touches the hearts of believers and offers guidance for their lives. They challenge us to examine what we think is true, our actions, and our relationships with others. The wisdom and beauty contained within these verses encourage individuals to seek a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. You see, by taking time to reflect upon each verse, one can uncover an enormous wealth of knowledge and benefit from its teachings, making the process both enriching and transformative. You see, my second goal is the result of my foremost goal, and that is to attain entrance to paradise. Now, think about this. Whenever someone dies, you always hear people say, oh, he's in a better place, or he's not suffering anymore because he's with God. Really? You know, it's funny. It seems that everyone who dies automatically goes to heaven. Now, this assumption is based on what? Or is it just a feeling? Are you really certain that this individual lived his or her life in accordance with what God had prescribed? Because that is the determining factor. However, what I can say is they're partly right. They do end up with God, but where the person ends up is only by the mercy of God. You see, you'll never hear anyone say, oh, he went to hell. Even if the person did the most horrific things in life, they'll just simply say, oh, he died, or they killed him. In the Quran, God narrates for us the description of the conditions in paradise and hell and what those experiences will be like. And based on these revelations, you will be able to ascertain, based on your deeds and actions, whether you might be successful and make it to paradise or fail and go to hell. Therefore, it's essential to understand the purpose of our existence. That is, to know what we must do to be successful in this life and serve for God's cause. We must nurture, fortify, and develop our Iman by following His divine instructions and performing righteous deeds. This is the only way we can hope for a chance to obtain the mercy of God upon our demise. Now, to that end, any striving we do in this life can only be achieved in a single attempt, as there will be no opportunities for rectification. There's no do-overs. This is a one-shot deal. And in 53:39-42, we read, and that man can have nothing but what he strives for, and that his striving will soon be seen. Then he will be rewarded for it with the fullest reward, and that to thy Lord is the goal. If by God's mercy we do make it to that better place where everyone seems to go in the end, that's a good thing. However, what's even better than that is to be in the presence of our Creator in paradise. God has promised to the believers, men and women, gardens wherein flow rivers to abide therein, and goodly dwellings in gardens of perpetual abode. And greatest of all is God's goodly pleasure, and that is the grand achievement. You see, this narration is likened to one who has reserved a ticket to the exclusive Club Paradise, which is by invitation only. You bought your ticket through your deeds and actions, and you're allowed to enter and stay and party and eat and drink and enjoy all the pleasures that are offered. However, other areas in Club Paradise are reserved for individuals with elite status, and these individuals get to sit and dine with the owner of Club Paradise. That is the grand achievement. And for those who turn away from God's guidance, in 67:2 and 6 through 10, God tells us, who created death and life that he might try you, which of you is best in deeds, and he is the mighty, the forgiving. And for those who disbelieve in their Lord is the chastisement of hell, and evil is the resort. When they are cast therein, they will hear a loud moaning of it as it heaves, almost bursting with fury. Whenever a group is cast into it, its keepers ask them, did not a warner come to you? They say, yes, indeed a warner came to us, but we denied and said, God has revealed nothing. You are only in great error. And they say, had we but listened or pondered, we should not have been among the inmates of the burning fire. You see, my concern for the well-being of Muslim youths, my family members, as well as other Muslims and non-Muslims, motivates me to communicate the true messages of God. It is my hope that anyone who hears what I say today listens critically and ponders these messages of God rather than just automatically rejecting them based on preconceived concepts taught by traditional Muslim scholars without examining the validity of my statements. You see, God reveals in the Quran that the people who rejected his messengers will try to put forth excuses that they didn't know they were being led astray by their religious leaders. But the Quran explicitly states that ignorance will not be a valid defense for not following his guidance. In 33:66 through 68, these individuals who reject the true messages of God will say when they meet their Lord, on the day when their leaders are turned back into the fire, they say, oh, would that we had obeyed God and the messenger. And they said, our Lord, we only obeyed our leaders and our great men, so they led us astray from the straight path. Our Lord, give them a double chastisement and curse them with a great curse. You see, the Creator has given us an intellect to discern right from wrong. But if we fail to use these reasoning faculties and put our trust in someone or something else for our guidance, we will suffer the consequences of our action. You see, God reminds us from the very beginning of our creation, and he says in 1678, and God brought you forth from the wombs of your mothers. You knew nothing. And he gave you hearing and sight and minds that you might give thanks. However, in 10:100, God warns us about not using our intellect. In 10:100 we read, "And it is not for any soul to believe except by God's permission, and he casts uncleanliness on those who will not understand." You see, casting uncleanliness refers to the act of rejecting God's guidance and turning away from the messages contained in the Quran alone. It involves refusing to use your God given intellect and turning toward someone or something else for guidance and instructions concerning right and wrong, instead of following the explicit instructions set forth in the Quran. We already saw in 9:122 how God warns us of this behavior and reminds us to obtain understanding in Deen in order to live a life that will not only be successful but be pleasing to Him. Many of the verses end with the phrases that invite us to think, reflect, and know. For example, many verses end with the phrase, "if they but knew," or "if you but knew," or "will you not use your reason?" You see, we strive for success in this life by obtaining advanced degrees from universities, which often require significant commitments of both time and resources. This entails purchasing the necessary books and incurring monetary debt that takes years to pay. The Quran, however, represents the ultimate and comprehensive revelation to humanity, serving as the essential text in Deen al-Islam and is the only required book to study. So if we're looking to be successful in life, why aren't we as diligent in examining and studying the one book God has deemed necessary for achieving success not only in this life, but in the hereafter? This is not to discourage or deter anyone from pursuing his or her goals and aspirations. To the contrary, but just a reminder to always be God conscious and acknowledge the source of your abilities and be grateful. Because we read in 14:32 through 34, God tells us, "God is he who created the heavens and the earth and sent down water from the clouds, then brought forth with it fruits as sustenance for you. And he has made the ships subservient to you, to run their courses in the sea by his command. And he has made the rivers subservient to you. And he has made subservient to you the sun and the moon, pursuing their courses. And he has made subservient to you the night and the day. And he has given you all that you ask of him. And if you count God's favors, you will not be able to number them. Surely man is very unjust and very ungrateful." You see, it's important to note here that God clearly tells us in 14:34 that he has given us all that we ask for. So the question comes to mind, why have some Muslims been convinced by their Muslim scholars that they must continuously ask for guidance 5 times a day when God has clearly told them he has given them all that they ask of him? He has given us his book of guidance, revealed to the messenger of God, complete with nothing left out, and is perfect. However, the first question Sunni Muslims ask is, how do you make Salah? Well, my short response is, Muslims who follow the Quran alone don't quote unquote make Salah. They quote unquote establish Salah. My long response is, I tell them what God told the messenger to say in 5:101 and 102 to the people when they asked him questions. In 5:101 and 102, God says, "O you who trust, ask not about things if made known to you will give you trouble, and if you ask about them when the Quran is being revealed, they will be made known to you. God pardons this, and God is forgiving, forbearing. A people before you indeed asked such questions, then became disbelievers therein." You see, these two powerful verses warn mankind regarding asking questions. They instruct us to be prepared to accept the answers that may not align with their preconceived notions, as resistance or rejection of God's divine guidance and can cause an individual to become a disbeliever. They also highlight the importance of being open to new perspectives and accepting the objective truths presented in the Quran. You see, these evident objective truths presented in the Quran directly oppose the prevailing notion concerning the second revelation authority taught within the Muslim community. For example, we read in 75:16, God told the messenger, "Move not thy tongue therewith to make haste with it." You see, this verse directly opposes the Sunni Muslims' second authority belief by instructing the messenger to refrain from speaking or acting based on personal inclinations and instead to adhere to the divine guidance revealed by God. We can confirm from these and many other verses in the Quran that the messenger said absolutely nothing on his own volition. Whenever the people asked the messenger of God something or they made a statement, his reply was whatever God commanded him to say. Moreover, in 69:38 and 43 through 48, we read, "But nay, I swear by that which you see, it is a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. And if he had fabricated against us certain sayings, we would have certainly have seized him by the right hand, then cut off his heart's vein, and not one of you could have withheld us from him. And surely it is a reminder for the dutiful." We clearly see here, had the messenger said anything other than what God told him to say to the people, God takes an oath on all that we see and swears that he would have cut off his heart's vein. Therefore, the messenger could not have possibly said, did, or approved of any of those things attributed to him in their hadith literature. You see, God's guidance is complete and perfect. He needs no helpers or sharers in his authority. By fully adapting our lives to his cause and demonstrating our thankfulness, we become more God conscious, which enables us to attain a sense of inner peace. Furthermore, God promises us that if we follow his guidance, we will have no fear, no grief, nor go astray or be unhappy. This new way of thinking and understanding the messages of God in the Quran alone will modify our perspectives, deeds, and actions, bringing about the peace and tranquility that is so desperately needed in contemporary society. Studying and understanding the messages contained in the Quran alone is a crucial responsibility as it offers guidance and direction in every aspect of your life. However, failing to take time to study the book of God and follow the guidance will result in the loss of one's soul forever, and your destination could be hellfire, not to that better place everybody talks about. Now, not accepting the path of truth and turning away from the guidance to the path of falsehood is a God given choice that we make. We are the only beings in creation that have been given this freedom of choice. And because of this distinction, you will be held accountable for the choices you make on the day of accountability when you meet your Lord. Unfortunately for some Muslims, it's easier to accept the status quo instead of challenging it due to fear. But there are many types of fear. My focus is on the fear of death, the fear of rejection, and the fear due to pride or ego. You see, the fear of death has permeated the Muslim community by those in leadership positions like an infectious and dangerous disease. Statements such as, "your blood is lawful," is a powerful fear tactic. With that statement, what that statement implies is if a Muslim ever decides he or she chooses to turn away from the traditional man-made religion of Islam, they are subject to be killed. And according to these man-made Sharia laws in many Muslim countries, individuals are given 3 days to change their mind. After that, they are to be killed. Then there's the fear of rejection. People feel if they adopt the position of being a Muslim who follows the Quran alone as their only source of guidance, they'll be shunned not only by other Muslims in their community, but by family members as well. Or simply a person may experience fear due to their own pride or ego. You see, having devoted themselves to rigorous education in esteemed Islamic institutions, guided by what are considered reputable scholars and sheikhs, and having delved into the realms of fiqh and tafsir and the memorization of the Prophet's hadith, these individuals struggle to acknowledge the fallacy and manipulation underlying their beliefs. It becomes challenging for them to come to terms with the reality that a vast number of Muslims are mistaken, thus perpetuating the control exerted through misinformation. You see, the path of truth has characteristics associated with it which points to its authenticity and validity. It's a common notion for some of us to think or believe that truth tends to originate wherever there is a consensus among the majority of people, while falsehood is only believed by the minority. So, let's explore the following questions using the Quran alone to find the answer. Is it true that the majority of individuals who claim to follow the path of truth serve as evidence or proof of its validation? And if so, what is the Quranic evidence to support that conclusion? In this instance, objective truths should be evaluated based on rational reasoning and evidence, rather than relying solely on a number of people who adhere to a specific belief. Therefore, the simple answer is no. There is no Quranic evidence to support that conclusion. Nonetheless, the Quran furnishes the substantiation necessary to address this inquiry. In 103, 1 through 3, God says, "By time, surely man is in loss, except those who trust and do good and exhort to one another to truth and exhort one another to patience." In these verses, God takes an oath on time and declares that the default status of all humanity is misguidance, and man is in loss. The majority of humanity is led astray, with the exception of those who diligently adhere to the truth and faithfully follow the guidance as bestowed upon the messenger. It's noteworthy to acknowledge the significance of the concept of exceptions mentioned in this verse. You see, in this context, we see the exception to this rule are those few individuals, the minority, who trust in the book of God alone, do good deeds, and who are patient. Now, logically speaking, if this path of truth was a path dominated by the majority of individuals, then would there really be a need for God to point out this exception in this verse? You see, the fact that God highlights this minority of individuals indicates we as humans, and specifically as Muslims, must exert extra effort to be cautious and investigate any information presented to us, to make sure that we are indeed treading on the right course, because the path of truth will not be the common or most obvious path to follow. Furthermore, we see in 1:16, God warns us, "And if you obey most of those on the earth, they will lead you astray from God's way. They follow naught but conjecture, and they only lie." And again, following the majority in this verse is not toward the path of God and does not indicate the location of truth. And in 10:36 we read, "And most of them do not follow anything but conjecture. Surely conjecture will not avail aught against the truth. Surely God is cognizant of what they do." You see, it's a fact that when all the prophets and messengers were sent to their people to convey the messages of God, they encountered an immense struggle to gain supporters, and it was always only a minority of individuals who embraced the deen compared to the majority. Moreover, in 12:103, God told the messenger, "And most men will not believe, though you desire it eagerly." You see, throughout the course of history, we find the path of truth is indeed almost always embraced by a small minority of believers, as evidenced in the story of David and Goliath in the Quran. The Battle of Badr is another example. The prophet, with his small army, faced thousands in the opposing army. In terms of number and logical assumptions, it appeared that the prophet's modest army would be defeated, but instead was victorious. In 3:13, God tells us, "There has already been for you a sign in the two armies that met in combat. One was fighting in the cause of God, and the other resisting God, whom they saw as twice their number clearly with their very eyes. And God strengthens with his aid whom he pleases. Most surely there is a lesson in this for those who have sight." Now, what I understand from these narrations is those who follow the path of truth are a small minority. It's also logical to assume that the path of truth requires sacrifice, submission, and humility by its followers. It's not a path of ease or comfort. Yo, the struggle is real, but in 94:6, God says, "With difficulty is surely ease." You see, the nature of man is to resist change that goes against one's comfort zone and personal inclinations. To uphold truth requires patience and perseverance, and man may be hesitant to follow a school of thought which offers no financial reward. When we read in the Quran the narration of Prophet Shuaib in 1187, Shuaib went to his people and told them to establish the Quranic Salah by serving God alone and following his commandments. His people responded and asked Shuaib, "Does his Salah require that they should forsake what their forefathers did or not do what they please with their wealth and property?" You see, Shuaib responded that his intention was not to prevent them from doing what they wanted to do, but to the contrary, he was telling them that he came to make things better for them by delivering the messages of God to follow his commandments. See, there's a wealth of information in these verses, but one important point we can establish is Shuaib's people knew what the Quranic Salah was, and it was clearly that it was not a ritual prayer that you do 3 times or 5 times or however many times an individual performs it throughout the day. Thus, God tells us that there are immense rewards for those who embrace Deen al-Islam and uphold its pure principles, even if there are thorns and needles in that divine path. In 39:10, God tells mankind, "Say, O my servants who believe, keep your duty to your Lord, for those who do good in this world is good, and God's earth is spacious. Truly, the steadfast will be paid their reward without measure." And in 29:7 we read, "And those who believe and do good, we shall certainly do away with their afflictions and reward them for the best of what they did." You see, this mental shift needed to follow the straight path, as outlined in the Quran alone, may be uncomfortable for some. However, change is necessary for growth. We see it in our daily lives. There are constant upgrades and changes happening all around us. Think about it. The Quran's significance transcends time, making it a book that maintains its relevance throughout any era. When the Quran was revealed during the time of the Messenger, the book revealed details regarding embryology. Something at that time was undiscoverable because the microscope had not been invented yet. However, in our time, we can bear witness to this objective truth. Fast forward to the present, this same book revealed 1400 years ago references not only the possibilities of alien life, but the concept of an expanding universe. A recent scientific discovery in 1929 by a scientist named Edwin Hubble. Over the years, the Hubble Space Telescope has captured countless stunning images of the universe, including galaxies, nebula, and other celestial objects. It has been also been used to study planets not only within our own solar system, but it's played a crucial role in the search for exoplanets, that is, planets that orbit stars outside our solar system. Hubble observed that the velocity of a galaxy's retreat into space increases as its distance from us grows, demonstrating that the universe is expanding uniformly in all directions. To support this objective truth, we find that in 51:47 God says, "And the heavens we constructed it with strength, and indeed we are surely its expanders." Now, of course, you have some Muslim scholars who are of the opinion that this verse does not support the theory of an expanding universe, but that conversation is to be had at a later date. So it's not far fetched to conceive of the notion, given the recent discoveries and advances in science, that space travel to other galaxies could be possible in the future. You see, similar to the messenger of God who faced limitations due to the technological constraints of his era, it is plausible that future generations might uncover the role of black holes as gateways to other galaxies, enabling intergalactic travel and encounters with extraterrestrial life. Although our current technology may not have reached such advanced levels, the potential for these discoveries remain open. The Quran is a book that is timeless, and it's unfortunate to see the Sunni Muslim scholars teaching Muslims to adopt and hold on to the same old routine ritual practices and behaviors of their ancestors, the Sahaba. They stunt their own intellectual growth by not being open to new knowledge and perspectives because of one, fear of reprisal, two, with change comes discomfort and no one wants to be uncomfortable, and three, it will drastically impede their ability to make a living. They persistently deliver lectures recounting the familiar stories of the prophets that remain unaltered over time. This practice hinders the progress of the Muslim community and fails to foster a growth oriented mindset, thus doing the Muslim community a disfavor. For example, the ludicrous hadith reference which suggests that if a fly inadvertently lands in your drink, you should fully immerse the fly in the liquid before consuming it and then discard the insect is preposterous. Who would even consider such a practice now? Certainly not me. We see change happening around us every day. Apple comes out with a new upgrade, it seems, almost every couple of years, and we run to buy the newest iPhone, with some of us not even knowing what the new upgrades are. Why aren't we that diligent with protecting our souls from the deadly disease of falsehood and evil and shameful deeds? Why? Because some Muslims are fearful of what will happen to them if, in their communities, within their own families, or fearful of losing their means to making a living. You see, these types of fears will prevent you from shifting your mindset. However, God has revealed to humanity what you should really be fearful of. In 3:174 we read, "It is the devil who only frightens his friends, but fear them not, and fear me if you are believers." And in 5:44 we read, "So fear not the people, and fear me, and take not a small price for my messages. And whoever judges not by what God has revealed, those are the disbelievers." And in 2:4 we read, "And we shall certainly try you with something of fear and hunger and loss of property and lives and fruits, and give good news to the patient." So, how do we protect ourselves from these types of fear? Well, God says by following the Hudan of God. The word Hudan is derived from the Arabic word hidayah, which means guidance or direction. This involves obeying God's commandments, being patient, treating others with kindness and justice, doing good deeds, and striving to improve oneself and society. And God tells us in 2:38, He says, "From the very beginning of creation, we said, Go forth from this state all. Surely there will come to you a guidance from me. Then whoever follows my guidance, no fear shall come upon them, nor shall they grieve. And in 735, God tells us, O children of Adam, if messengers come to you from among you, relating to you my messages, then whosoever guards against evil and acts aright, they shall have no fear, nor shall they grieve. Moreover, in 123 and 124, God tells us, He said, Go forth here from both of you, all of you. One of you is an enemy to another. So there will surely come to you guidance from me. Then whoever follows my guidance, he will not go astray, nor be unhappy. And whoever turns away from my reminder, for him is surely a life of hardship, and we shall raise him up blind on the day of resurrection. So we see from these verses, following the Hudan of God, you will not only have no fear or grief, you won't go astray or be unhappy or suffer the severe consequences as a result of you turning away from the guidance. Now that we've established the fact that we need to follow the Hudan of God, what does God say is the Hudan to follow? In 185, God reveals, the month of Ramadan is that in which the Quran was revealed, a guidance to men and clear proofs of the guidance and the criterion. Now, given the foregoing, the Quran is the sole source of guidance for humanity, not the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet. However, prominent Muslim scholars advocate for the supplementation of the Quran with external source materials, portraying them as something like it, as they instruct the Muslim Ummah. To support the fact that the guidance we are to follow comes only from God and not from the Quran and something like it, we read in 28:49, God is telling the messenger to say to the children of Israel. In 28:49 we read, Say, then bring some other book from God which is a better guide than these two. I will follow it if you are truthful. The messenger was instructed to say to his people that if they brought him a book that is a better guide than the Quran, he would follow it, not something like it, as some Muslim scholars assert in an attempt to introduce the necessity of a second source authority. Therefore, according to the statement made by the messenger, all their hadith literature would have to be considered a better guide than the Quran before the messenger would follow it. Now, what Muslim scholar in their right mind would be silly enough to take an oath to God and confirm that the hadith literature of the Prophet is a better guide than the Quran? Well, maybe, who knows? There might be some scholars bold enough to make that claim. However, a clear refutation to that claim we read in 5:15 and 16. It says, O people of the book, indeed our messenger has come to you, making clear to you much of that which you concealed of the book and passing over much. Indeed, there has come to you from God a light and a clear book, whereby God guides such as follow his pleasure into the ways of peace, and brings them out of darkness into light by his will, and guides them to the straight path. You see, these verses refute the second source claim because they explicitly mention only a light and a clear book from God that can serve as a guide to the straight path. The straight path Muslims ask to be guided to 5 times a day. And in 43:43, we read what book it is. So hold fast to that, the Quran, which has been revealed to thee. Surely thou art on the straight path. Therefore, these narrations serve as conclusive proof the Quran alone, The revelation of God is the Hudan of God and the straight path, not the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. Mind you, it's the straight path Muslims pray and ask to be guided to 5 times a day. They ask to be guided, God sends the guidance down, then they don't follow the guidance. What sense does that make? Now think about this for a minute. In 2530, we read that the messenger said Muslims have abandoned the Quran. And the messenger said, "My Lord, surely my people treat this Quran as a forsaken thing." We see here the messenger said his people made hijrah away from the Quran. And of course, we see today that they have chosen to follow a different path outside the book. Now, this decision to turn away from the guidance of God and follow their man-made hadiths is referenced in Sahih al-Bukhari, 6098, Book of Good Manners and Form, El-Adab, Book 78, Hadith 125, narrated by Tariq, which asserts the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad. And in Sunan an-Nasai, 1311, Book of Forgetfulness and Prayer, Book 13, Hadith 133, narrated from Jabir, asserts that the Messenger of God used to say in his prayer, after the Teshahhud, the best word is the word of Allah, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad. They are attributing this to the Messenger. First of all, what word in the Quran do the scholars translate as prayer? They certainly can't say Salah, because if they do, then Allah does it. Allah prays? I don't think so. Moreover, in 3:100 we read, "And how can you disbelieve while you are recited the messages of God, and among you is his messenger? And whoever holds fast to God indeed is guided to the straight path." You see, from this we can conclude that adhering steadfastly to the messages of God necessitates embracing the guidance that leads to the straight path of God. Conversely, deviating from the messages of God and incorporating other outside sources would signify following the path of Shaitan. And we see this in 2:168. We are warned by God not to follow Shaitan, and follow not the footsteps of the devil. Surely he is an open enemy to you. Because there are only 2 parties, the party of God in 58:22 and the party of Shaitan in 58:19. In 58:22 we read, "Thou wilt not find a people who believe in God and the latter day, loving those who oppose God and his messenger, even though they are their fathers or their sons or their brothers or their kinsfolk. These are they into whose heart he has instilled trust and strengthened them with a spirit from himself, and he will cause them to enter gardens, wherein flow rivers abiding therein. God is well pleased with them, and they are well pleased with him. These are God's party. Now surely it is God's party who are the successful." However, in contrast, in 58:19 we read, "The devil has gained the mastery over them, so he has made them forget the remembrance of God. They are the devil's party. Now surely the devil's party are the losers." And in 7:16, God reveals Shaitan's promise to lead humanity away from the straight path. He said, "As thou hast adjudged me to be erring, I will lie in wait for them in thy straight path." Shaitan is relentlessly striving to divert us from the straight path, steering us away from God's guidance, the Quran alone, and encouraging mankind to seek guidance from outside source materials or other individuals. We can conclude from the preceding narrations that the Quran alone is the only source of guidance for mankind and is a practical how-to manual for humanity. Its adherence is crucial, as it's the only reliable way to stay on the straight path. Having a clear understanding of the messages of God will lead to a transformation of your mindset, thus enabling you to make the necessary shift in your thinking without fear of reprisal. Once we become woke and make the necessary shift in our minds to understand and follow the messages of God, what has God instructed the Muslims to do to prevent us from going astray and not be distracted by the whispers of Shaitan? One word, taqwa, which is strict monotheism. You see, taqwa is an Arabic word that is often translated as piety, fear of God, or mindfulness of God. It's a key concept in Din al-Islam and refers to a state of consciousness where a person always keeps God in mind and strives to follow his commandments and avoid sins. Taqwa is seen as a protective shield that helps a person avoid wrongdoing and makes choices that are pleasing to God. It's not about fear in a negative sense or a spooky type of fear, but more about respect, reverence, and love for God leading to obedience and good behavior. It's an internal compass constantly guiding a person toward righteousness and away from evil. You see, we must grasp the fundamental concept of taqwa to protect us from the whispers of Shaitan. By understanding the concept of taqwa, we can experience a deeper connection with God that nurtures characteristics within us, which include, but are not limited to, humility, kindness, and justice toward others. Additionally, it leads to the spiritual growth of our nafs and gives us a greater sense of purpose. Taqwa represents the establishment of the constant, vigilant awareness of God that permeates every aspect of an individual's life throughout every moment of one's life. It is the foundational principle of the Quran and the line of protection between you and the punishment of God or his protection by obeying his commands and avoiding his prohibitions. The Quran aims to bring about a spiritual and societal transformation for mankind, and the development of taqwa within us is a gradual process that grows with an increasing trust in God's messages. It is this fear that keeps the hearts of Muslims woke to the temptations of Shaitan and enables us to choose right over wrong. In 2:21, God tells humanity, O mankind, serve your Lord who created you and those before you, so that you may guard against evil. And in 7:26 we read, O children of Adam, we have indeed sent down to you clothing to cover your shame and clothing for beauty, and clothing that guards against evil, that is the best. This is the messages of God that they may be mindful. And in 21:13 we read, And thus we have sent it down in Arabic Quran, and have distinctly set forth therein of warnings that they may guard against evil, or that it may be a reminder for them. Our group discussions offer differing viewpoints that oppose the arguments of Muslim scholars who believe the guidance of Muhammad is the best guidance. And in 7:27 God warns mankind, O children of Adam, let not Shaitan seduce you as he drove out your parents from the garden, pulling off from them their clothing that he might show them their shame. He surely sees you as well as his hosts from whence you see them not. Surely we have made the devils to be friends of those who believe not. Here God is telling us to avoid and not repeat the same mistake of our ancestors that led to their expulsion from paradise. By strictly adhering to the messages contained only in the Quran and revealing the objective truths therein as communicated by God to his messenger, we dispute their arguments. Our objective mirrors a Quranic methodology of spiritual and social change and is a global expression of dissent. We achieve this objective by mounting effective arguments opposing the views of the Muslim scholars who believe it is not only essential but required to follow the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet to attain paradise. Moreover, as individuals who put their total trust in the Quran alone, this Quranic approach to spiritual and social transformation of humanity aims to resolve misunderstandings about the divine text in a manner consistent with God's principles by establishing a system of checks and balances. You see, at present, the ulama, the Islamic scholars, have designated themselves as the single authoritative figure on matters relating to their man made religion of Islam and its interpretation of the religious text. Accordingly, to gain that understanding, turning to them is the only option. They perceive it as their responsibility, based on their so called expertise, to discern God's law because they claim to stand for the quote unquote best interest of their community. By appointing themselves as guardians of their own man made religion of Islam, they've claimed legitimacy for their position. However, their actions have resulted in nothing but a legacy of backwardness and servitude among Muslims. Therefore, the matter of establishing proper checks and balances using only the source of guidance, the Quran alone, is critical. However, the Muslim scholars choose to teach the Muslim Ummah to turn away from the guidance of God and turn toward their second source materials. And in 43:22, we read, God tells us what these individuals during the time of the messenger said when they were told by the messenger to follow only the messages contained in the Quran alone. In 43:22 we read, Nay, they say, we found our fathers on a course, and surely we are guided by their footsteps. And in 2:170 God tells us again what they said. And when it is said to them, follow what God has revealed, they said, we follow what we found our ancestors following. Even if their ancestors had no sense and they were not guided. And in 7:30 we read what God says. He said, a party he has guided and another party, perdition is justly their due. Surely they took the devils for friends instead of God, and they think they are rightly guided. You see, Muslim scholars today are convinced that by teaching the Muslim Ummah to follow the same ancestral traditions and practices, they truly believe that they are rightly guided by them. The traditional Sunni Muslims' inclination to follow the ancient practices of the messengers Sahaba and the Tabi'un are being challenged by this group of Muslims and many others who are devoted and educated Muslims who fear their Lord and who want to contribute to understanding Deen al-Islam. You see, Muslim scholars have fabricated a misleading notion that to be considered knowledgeable in religious matters, one must follow these ancient practices and attend universities approved only by them to be deemed authoritative Islamic institutions of higher education. However, God tells us in 2:141 about those ancient predecessors who Muslim scholars say Muslims must follow and imitate in their dress and behavior. We read in 2:141, those are people that have passed away, and for them is what they earn, and for you is what you earn, and you will not be asked of what they did. You see, God is not going to ask you, did you dye your beard red? Did you wear your pants above your ankles? Did you squat and eat? And did you only eat with your right hand? And did you go into the bathroom with your right foot and come out with your left foot? And as for my Muslim sisters, you've been totally misled by your Muslim scholars regarding issues that affect Muslim women. And inshallah, I will present my proof text in future lectures regarding those issues. So definitely stay tuned for that. But first, my brothers and sisters, you have to unlock your mind and wake up to that which gives you life in order to accept the objective truths in the Quran and use your God given intellect to discern right from wrong. You see, as Muslims who strictly follow the Quranic system given by God, is duty bound to verify the accuracy of the claims made by Muslim scholars regarding their understanding of the Quran. We must ensure that what they communicate to the Muslim community and society at large is the objective truths from God. The Quran narrates two major ways the needed checks and balances are provided. So they put them to flight by God's permission, and David slew Goliath, and God gave him a kingdom and wisdom, and taught him of what he pleased. And were it not for God's repelling some men by others, the earth would certainly be in a state of disorder. But God is limitless in his bounty unto all the worlds. You see, from this verse, I understand from the context that not only does it show the preponderance of numbers does not bear witness to the truth, but it also demonstrates a weaker party can bring about a dramatic shift by defeating and displacing a formidable party in power. This verse, in the context of David and Goliath, expounds that even a weak but righteous party like David could kill a giant evil like Goliath and bring about a just rule. History is replete with occasions when formidable powers were replaced by underdogs. Without this process of good replacing evil, humanity would have perished long ago. More importantly, we read about another example of checks and balances in the Quran in 2240. 2240 says, "Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause, except that they say, 'Our Lord is God alone.' And if God did not repel some people by others, cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques, in which God's name is much remembered, would have been pulled down. And surely God will help him who helps him. Surely God is strong, mighty." Now, this method is more dangerous in some countries, but no less profound in its capacity to fight injustice and oppression. It's provided by empowering the opposing forces to check evil forces in society that are destructive. In this verse, we see that if these counter forces are not empowered, then the level of bigotry, prejudices, hatred, and arrogance could rise to a level that could even destroy places of worship. For example, if you have a controlling party who tells a community of people they can't build any houses of worship they choose, they are only allowed to build what they say to build. This is where the opposing forces to evil step in. It's a bit more dangerous, but it's a fight against injustice because there is no compulsion in Deen al-Islam. In a true Islamic state, you can believe and worship however and whatever you choose, and the concept of your blood is lawful is non-existent. Just be ready to accept your reward or punishment when you die and stand before your Creator for whatever decisions you made in life. Now, to submit to God is a choice you make willingly or unwillingly, not a demand forced upon you and something you must do. The foregoing narratives contain far-reaching solutions for society. The Quran proclaims that if God does not replace formidable powers that become utterly corrupt and arrogant, or not check people that become extremely mischievous and destructive by others, the world would become completely dysfunctional. Moreover, these narratives imply that too much power in the hands of a few is a breeding ground for corruption and abuse. There must be the presence and empowerment of others who would pose as a counterforce to help create the proper checks and balances. Unfortunately, we're seeing these controlling efforts played out in society and the world stage today. Greed, corruption, immorality, exploitation, war, lawlessness, and the consequences of such actions. As Muslims who put their trust solely in God and the Quran alone, we are engaged in a battle to fight for his cause, and this is the essence of our fight. And in 190 we read, "And fight in the way of God against those who fight against you, but be not aggressive. Surely God loves not the aggressors." Ours is not an aggressive fight. It is an intellectual fight to combat any attempts by those in power, that is, the so-called traditional ulama, the Islamic scholars, muftis and sheikhs and the like, to impose their man-made religion of Islam on the Muslim Ummah. Therefore, my focus in this group is threefold. One, to help Muslims become woke to falsehood. 2, to promote a mind revolution and help Muslims adopt God's system of checks and balances. And 3, dedicate my research to exposing deceptive information taught to Muslims. You see, in God's how-to manual of divine guidance, you will find not only the revelation of what the Quranic Salah is and how to establish it, but also it lays down for humanity the Quranic Sharia law. That is, commandments and instructions for social and moral behavior, individual rights and liberties, as well as tolerance and freedom from the shackles and burdens of previous generations. So, to be clear, my understanding is that the Quranic Salah is not the physical praying that most Muslims do 3 times, 5 times, or however many times an individual chooses to make their ritual prayers during the day. You see, there's no word in the Quran that could be translated as prayer, and the Quran is not a prayer book. So, who are the Muslims reciting their prayers to? Because we read in 17:106 and 107, God clearly tells the messenger to recite the messages to the people. God says, and it is a Quran we have made distinct so that you may recite it to the people. Therefore, there's no need to recite the Quran back to God. He has revealed to us in 13:33, he says, is then he who watches every soul as to what it earns? And yet they ascribe partners to God. Say, name them. Would you inform him of that which he knows not in the earth, or of an outward saying? Rather, their plan is made fair seeming to those who disbelieve, and they are kept back from the path. And whom God leaves in error, he has no guide. You know, it's time to wake up to that which gives you life, and the Quranic Salah is very simple. It is specifically outlined in 6:152 through 154, and is consistent of the 10 commandments revealed by God as guiding principles for mankind to follow in their daily lives. And in 6:152 through 154 we read, say, come, I will recite to you what your Lord has sanctioned for you. 1. Associate naught with him. And 2. Do good to parents. And 3. Slay not your children for fear of poverty. We provide for you and for them. And 4. Draw not nigh to indecencies, open or secret. And 5. Kill not the soul which God has made sacred except in the course of justice. This he enjoins upon you that you may understand. 6. And approach not the property of the orphan except in the best manner until he attains his maturity. And 7. And give full measure and weight with equity. We impose not on any soul a duty except to the extent of its ability. 8. And when you speak, be just, though it be against a relative. 9. And fulfill God's covenant. This he enjoins upon you that you may be mindful. And 10. And know that this is my straight path, the right one, so follow it, and follow not other ways, for they will lead you away from his way. This he enjoins on you that you may keep your duty. You see, these verses encompass what my understanding is as to what the Quranic Salah is. And some Muslims, like myself, who follow the Quran alone, establish the Quranic Salah and remain in a constant state of Salah. We never stop establishing Salah as part of our daily life, in contrast to our Sunni Muslim brothers and sisters who stop and start making their ritual prayer however many times a day they choose. The difference in what I do as a Muslim who follows the Quran alone is I declared my submission to God and established my allegiance to God's commandments and injunctions daily, in contrast to some Muslims' ritual practice of physically making prayer. By establishing this practice in my life, it becomes impossible for me or anyone to commit shameful or evil deeds. This is because you consistently incorporate and inculcate the Quranic Salah in your daily routine. Through the establishment of the Quranic Salah, this constant daily act results in a powerful deterrent against immoral actions as it continuously reinforces one's commitment to righteousness, leaving no room for deviation. And of course, my Sunni brethren will then ask, well, where are the details for your Quranic Salah? And as usual, when God gives a command, he provides the details for establishing that command. In 1723 through 39, we read the details for establishing the Quranic Salah. And thy Lord has decreed that you serve none but him, and do good to your parents. If either or both of them reach an old age with thee, do not say a word of disrespect or repel them, nor chide them, and speak to them a generous word. And lower to them the wing of humility out of mercy, and say, my Lord, have mercy on them, as they brought me up when I was little. Your Lord knows best what is in your minds. If you are righteous, he surely is forgiving to those who turn to him. Give to the near of kin his due, and to the needy and to the wayfarer, and squander not wastefully. Surely the squanderers are the devil's brethren, and the devil is ever ungrateful to his Lord. And if thou turn away from them to seek mercy from thy Lord, which thou hopest for, speak to them a gentle word, and make not thy hand to be shackled to thy neck, nor stretch it forth to the utmost limit of its stretching forth, lest thou sit down blamed, stripped off. Surely thy Lord makes plentiful the means of subsistence for whom he pleases, and he straightens. Surely he is ever aware, seer of his servants. And kill not your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them and for you. Surely the killing of them is a great wrong. And go not nigh to fornication. Surely it is an obscenity, and evil is the way. And kill not the soul which God has forbidden except for a just cause. And whoever is slain unjustly, we have indeed given to his heir authority. But let him not exceed the limit in slaying. Surely he will be helped. And draw not nigh to the orphan's property, except in a goodly way, till he attains his maturity, and fulfill the promise. Surely the promise will be inquired into. And give full measure when you measure out, and weigh with a true balance. This is fair and better in the end. And follow not that of which thou hast no knowledge. Surely the hearing and the sight and the heart, all of these will be asked. And go not about in the land exultingly, for thou canst not rend the earth, nor reach the mountains in height. All this, the evil thereof, is hateful in the sight of God. This is the wisdom which thy Lord has revealed to thee, and associate not any other God with God, lest thou be thrown into hell, blamed, cast away. You see, these all-inclusive directives are the principles on which one establishes the Quranic Salah. God has given you all that you ask of him. All you must do is submit your will to the Creator and pledge your allegiance to him alone, and follow the guidance sent down and revealed to the messenger. Moreover, in 49:13 we read, O mankind, surely we have created you from a male and a female, and made you nations and tribes, that you may know each other. Surely the noblest of you with God is the most God-conscious of you. Surely God is knowing, aware. You see, the instructions in this narrative hold a great significance and cannot be overstated. In addition to an individual growing in taqwa and becoming God-conscious in the eyes of God, all human beings are created equal, and it is crucial we understand and respect each other to avoid adversarial conflicts. Now, to reiterate, we can clearly see God tells us the Quran is the Hudan to follow, not the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. The people who follow God's straight path, which is the Quran alone, are not only called Muslims, but are people of taqwa, who are God conscious. This is why we really need to be cognizant and understand who the real enemy is. Let's not get it twisted. Contrary to how Muslim scholars try to portray Muslims who follow Quran alone as the enemy of Islam and call us mushriks and Quraniyun and Quranists and hadith rejectors. It is the devil who is the real enemy. What Shaitan has managed to do is sow dissension not only between different ethnic groups of people in society, but he has divided the Muslim Ummah into sects, as well as dividing humanity into different religions and even convinced some to worship created things. He has mastered the art of divide and conquer. Specifically, he has manipulated Muslims to fight amongst themselves with the sole purpose of getting as many of us away from the only source of guidance, El Quran, which God says is the Hudan for all humanity. You see, the devil has managed to corrupt our intellect and divert our attention away from the Quran toward a direction that is contrary to our natural instincts and what God has prescribed for us. And from the looks of it, for the majority of us, he has succeeded. Moreover, our Quranic study group simply refuses to be continually indoctrinated and spoon-fed outdated narratives and hadiths concocted by big-bearded Muslim scholars whose goal is to put out the light of God with their mouths and make money doing it. In 932, we read, "They desire to put out the light of God with their mouths, and God will allow nothing save the perfection of his life, though the disbelievers are averse." And in 5680 through 82, God reveals, "A revelation from the Lord of the worlds. Is this the hadith that you disdain and make your denial your means of making a living?" You see, God reveals in 39:23, he says, "God has revealed the best hadith, the Aqsanul Hadithi, a book consistent repeating its injunctions, whereat do shudder the skins of those who fear their Lord. Then their skins and their hearts soften to God's remembrance. This is God's guidance. He guides with it whom he pleases, and he whom God leaves in error, there is no guide for him." You see, Sunni Muslims have abandoned and made hijrah from God's Aqsanul Hadith, the best hadith, and have instead embraced fabricated hadiths contributed to the Prophet of God, which are man-made in nature. Their intent is to disseminate misleading information and profit financially, with many receiving the backing from supportive governments to circulate deceptive narratives and champion a distorted representation of their understanding of Islam. God's messages in the Quran alone is intended for all humanity, regardless of where your ancestors have migrated from, and it is our responsibility as Muslims who trust solely in the Book of God to expose the true messages and eliminate any confusion. You see, we are literally fighting for the cause of God and in self-defense against evil and falsehood, and this is our fight. In 2:244, we read, "And fight in the way of God and know that God is hearing, knowing." This narration states that fighting for the cause of God is equivalent to fighting for Deen al-Islam and against the fabricated version of the man-made parallel religion of Islam with all its rituals and traditions that have been passed down through their ancestral worship as guidance. Now, contrary to this fabricated propaganda communicated to the Muslim community by Muslim scholars through various media sources, there is no compulsion in accepting Deen al-Islam simply because it's not a religion. It's a way of life. Anyone who hears the true messages of God has a right and a free will to either accept or reject God's messages. In 2:256 we read, "There is no compulsion in Deen. The right way is indeed clearly distinct from error. So whosoever disbelieves in the devil and believes in God, he indeed lays hold on the firmest handle which shall never break. And God is hearing, knowing." See, here we clearly see the reason no one is forced to accept this way of life, that is Deen al-Islam, is because God says the truth stands out clear from falsehood. When we serve God, we are serving for His cause, and we have a free will to choose to serve Him or not, and accept or reject His messages. More importantly, to assure you know and understand who your Lord is and what your responsibility is to Him, He has planted specific knowledge in everyone's DNA when we are born, so you can't say you were unaware of this fact. In 7:172, God says, "And when thy Lord brought forth from the children of Adam from their loins their descendants, and made them bear witness about themselves, Am I not your Lord? They said, Yes, we bear witness, lest you should say on the day of resurrection, We were unaware of this." You see, this prenatal witnessing eliminates the possibility of claiming ignorance of God at the time of death and judgment. You will be held accountable not only for your own deeds and actions and choices, but also for failing to recognize or rejecting the messages of your Lord. You will not be able to blame others for your lack of understanding or refusal to follow His guidance. Our goal as critical thinkers in this group is to expose the truth as to what God has sanctioned for humanity in the Quran alone, which is making known the two conspicuous ways, the right way and the wrong way. We've already discussed the two ways, the right way, which is the party of God, or the wrong way, which is the party of Shaitan. There is no in between, there's no gray area. Moreover, to further support the fact that there is only a two-party system in Deen al-Islam, is in 91, 7 through 10, we also read, "And the soul and its perfection. So He revealed to it its way of evil and its way of good. He is indeed successful who causes it to grow, and He indeed fails who buries it." You see, this man-made parallel religion of Islam is characterized by the implementation of all sorts of rituals and practices originating from outdated non-Quranic hadith sources. It's a construct taught by scholars and those in authority, performed by its practitioners, and is not detailed in the Quran. Their hadith literature misleads, paralyzes, and stunts the growth of the Muslim Ummah, which has resulted in disadvantaged and dysfunctional societies. It propagates a life of violence, terrorism, extremism, idolatry, rituals, oppressive tribal laws, chauvinism, and poverty. However, in 31:6, God makes mention regarding their hadith literature. And we read, "And of men is he who takes instead frivolous discourse, lakwal hadithi, to lead men astray from God's path without knowledge and to make it a mockery. For such is an abasing chastisement." You see, they base their parallel man-made religion of Islam on the examples of the Prophet Muhammad in their hadith literature. That is what he said, did, or silently approved of in his presence. However, if you look through the Quran, you find little information about Muhammad the Prophet, idolized by millions of Sunni Muslims around the world. What you do find when you read the Quran is Muhammad the messenger, who became frustrated and disappointed and failed in his mission to convince the people to follow God alone without associating partners with him, like the messengers did before him. As a result, these Muslims made hijrah away from the Quran and turned toward these laqwal hadiths, and they will continue to suffer and experience humiliation unless and until they return to God alone, their sole guardian, legislator, and guide. But God tells the messenger not to let these disbelievers grieve him. In 3:175 we read, "And let not those grieve thee who run into disbelief precipitously. Surely they can do no harm to God. God intends not to assign them any portion in the hereafter, and for them is a grievous chastisement." You see, their hadith literature are inconsistent due to many discrepancies and contradictory statements, making their man-made religion of Islam complicated and confusing. In contrast, Din al-Islam not only denounces religion, rituals, worship, animal sacrifice, pilgrimages, and the like, which you read in their hadith literature, it categorizes such practices as idol worship. Din al-Islam seeks to attract the hearts and minds of all humanity, irrespective of your ethnic background. The Quran alone is the truth, el-haq, from your Lord. God says the noblest of humanity displays the best character, the character of taqwa, which is guarding oneself against evil, being God conscious, and adhering to strict monotheism. You see, Muslim scholars have allowed their narrow-minded and self-serving views corrupt Din al-Islam and bring shame to the messenger prophet by concocting ridiculous hadiths and attributing them to him. By adhering to irrational, outdated, and often misleading traditions and practices, they obscure the power and beauty of Din al-Islam and deprive themselves and the rest of the world from the true messages of God. Adhering to the principles outlined in the messages, we cultivate the ability to heed divine guidance and transform ourselves into people characterized by taqwa with a heightened consciousness of God. This helps us avoid reducing Din al-Islam to a mere display of tribal customs and traditional garments. In conclusion, the aim of my lecture today, Wake Up to That Which Gives You Life, was to tackle two significant issues faced by the Muslim community. Firstly, exposing the purposeful dissemination of misinformation taught by Muslim scholars. Secondly, to simplify the comprehension of God's messages in the Quran for Muslims and non-Muslims alike, and to make it easier for them to overcome any fear of change. Right now, more than ever, Muslims are fed distorted religious concepts and are starving for knowledge and understanding of the Book of God. Our annual Tawheed conferences challenge Muslims and non-Muslims to act and connect with other like-minded critical thinkers to gain the insights needed to make a meaningful progress in your spiritual growth and create a meaningful purpose in your life. The key is having the right information to be able to reset and recalibrate life's priorities. Our aim is to provide this information through thought-provoking discussions, not only to help you survive, but to thrive, even when it feels like the rest of the world is falling apart. Now, we don't have all the answers, but rest assured the discussions we have will only be backed by the objective truths contained in the Quran alone, using a common sense approach. You see, we are the architects of our destiny with respect to our souls. Even though some of you may feel confused and fearful right now, determine for yourself that change is good, and this change is the key to becoming woke to that which gives you life. With this newfound understanding, you will obtain the wherewithal to break what you thought were unbreakable thought patterns and habits, and unleash your God-given power and grow your iman, which is a necessary antidote for the times we live in. My dear brothers and sisters, a significant moment has arrived, and it's called Hudan, guidance from God, serving as our sole source of instruction to the straight path. Throughout the ages, the word Hudan has existed within the Quran, offering profound insights for us and those who came before us. Now the responsibility lies upon us to fully comprehend its essence. We must wholeheartedly embrace and diligently explore its profound meaning with unwavering dedication and resolve. Din al-Islam presents a pragmatic remedy for sustained spiritual and moral development, both at the individual and societal levels. Nevertheless, we understand that some of you may harbor concerns about embracing change. Please be reassured that the purpose of our annual Tawheed conferences focuses on helping make the necessary mind shift from the man-made parallel religion of Islam to Din al-Islam. We aim to accomplish this by presenting compelling, rational, and contemplative arguments that stimulate critical thinking and foster insight and education. Initially, it was challenging for me to acknowledge and come to terms with the realization that the teachings I believed to be the ultimate truth imparted by Muslim scholars were in fact inaccurate and had no Quranic basis at all. Accepting this fact was tough for me to digest, not to mention the removal of my head covering. I had convinced myself that covering my head was a commandment from God and a form of worship to my Creator. And to my surprise, after researching what the Quranic injunctions were regarding these matters, nothing could be further from the truth. But know that true understanding is not achieved without sacrifice. You will have to study hard and give up some things you thought were established truths and accept that the road to understanding the true, unadulterated messages of God will not be without its challenges. So please be patient with yourself. Trust that the right time for you to trust in God alone as your sole guide and helper will come if and only if you are truly seeking the truth and you put all your trust in the Creator alone. It's a natural human inclination to feel doubt and fear when confronted with change. However, the Quran instructs us to place unwavering trust in God's messages without hesitation. By exhibiting patience during times of adversity and maintaining steadfast trust in His messages, we can be assured that our perseverance will be acknowledged and rewarded by our Creator. In 25, 75, and 76, God says, "It is they who are rewarded with high places because they are patient and are met therein with greetings and salutations, abiding therein, goodly the abode and the resting place." And inshallah, once you comprehend the reality of your innate God-given nature and your obligations to Him, seize this opportunity to hold on to the rope of God, which is the Quran alone. Since God has cautioned us, we must not leave this world without being a Muslim, and it becomes crucial to understand how to accomplish this goal with precision. And in 3:101, we read, "O you who trust, keep your duty to God as it ought to be kept, and die not unless you are a Muslim." My understanding of this verse is before you die, it is crucial to declare your submission to His guidance only. Establish the Quranic Salah and keep it pure from corruption by refraining from and turning to alternative sources of guidance, and keep your duty to God alone. Once you've submitted willingly and understand who God is and what your true responsibility is to Him alone, use it to build a brighter, more prosperous, and successful future for yourself, your family, and for generations to come. Thank you for listening. La ilaha illallah wa ana minal muslimina. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.